Good day, friends. Today, I'm going to share a little bit of my knowledge with you all about the principle of client's self-determination. We have discussed about other important principles of social casework like controlled emotional involvement, principle of acceptance, principle of non-judgmental attitude. And in today's class, we'll be discussing about the principle of client's self-determination. Let's see what self determination means actually. Self determination refers to self direction. We can say it is simply the recognition of one's own rights and even the freedom in making our own decisions and our own choices. We all know that human beings have different attitudes, different personalities, and with these personalities and attitudes, they have a different way of working. That different way of working and taking things in life actually determines how well we prosper in our lives. So it becomes important that one should be aware of one's own rights, one's own freedom, where he is able to make his own choices, where he is able to make his own decisions without being influenced by the other. We can even say that self determination is based on the dignity and worth of human beings. Now, in this slide, I have tried to mention that, in particular to the context of social casework, the principle of self determination states that an individual has the right of making decisions pertaining to his or her own life without any impositions of other persons' decisions. That we can say that the caseworker here can only guide and enable the client to make the decisions. The caseworker actually acts as a guiding light. He is the one who would help you to make your own decisions. He does not persuade in a controlling way, and he does not manipulate the client's decisions. So, the principle of self determination is simply the practical recognition of the rights and the needs of the clients to freedom, particularly in making his own decisions, his own choices. Okay? The principle of self determination becomes a meaningless cliche. Why? In case if the client's rights is not balanced realistically with the limitations of that right, until and unless the client is free enough to make his own decisions, the principle has no meaning. So it really becomes important that the client has his own space and he is able to use that space in making his own decisions pertaining to his situations. In the next slide, I have come up with the client's right of self determination is even limited by. It's not that the client is totally free to make his own decisions, or the client is completely in a state of taking his own decisions without understanding the situations or the things. But yes, there are certain conditions where his rights are limited by. The first thing or the first condition where his rights are limited is his own capacity for positive and constructive decision making. See, every client is not that balanced in his life that he has a capacity for making constructive decisions about his life or about his problematic conditions. So, here the rights are limited. Secondly, the condition for limiting the right of self determination of the client is by a framework of civil and the moral law. And the last limitation is the limitation by the functions of the agency. So, under these conditions, the right of self determination of the client is actually limited by. Now, let's see that under the principle of self determination, what is the role of a caseworker? How caseworker actually works with the client, how well he is able to understand his client, and in that particular process, how well he is able to solve the client's problem. So, the basic role here is to help the client to view his own problem or what he actually needs very clearly, and that too with a perspective. See, perspective here means that there can be a problem with many people, but we have to give the solutions according to the person's attitude, his own personality, and the way he is living his life. So, perspective here becomes important that a particular direction is needed in which he is able to see his problem very clearly, and he should be able to analyze that this particular way would be leading him towards a successful termination of the problem or successful handling of the problem presently also and in future also. So the caseworker here plays very important role by making the client view his problem clearly. Now, another important role of a caseworker is to acquaint the client with pertinent resources, the available resources in the community, and how well he can use those resources to solve his problem. Next is to introduce stimuli that will activate the client's own dormant resources. Now, this role of a caseworker is very, very important. Here, the caseworker actually acts like a stimuli. He is actually working as a person who is infusing lot of capacity, lot of strengths, lot of stability in the client that would help actually the client to activate his own dormant resources and how well he can use them to solve his problem. Many a times what happens in a problematic situation, person is not able to see that he is already having enough resources, enough capacity to solve his problem, but actually being blinded by the present conditions, he fails to see all this. So just to make him aware that he already has a lot of resources which he can use to solve his problem, caseworker acts as a stimuli. He works as one who is instilling in him a lot of strengths, a lot of positive attitude, and a lot of positive attitude plus vision to see his problem and how to solve with available resources. Last but not the least, the important role of caseworker is to create a relationship, is to increase a relationship environment in which the client is able to grow and he is able to work out his own problems. So, the ultimate aim of the social work is to help people so that they are able to help themselves in future. So, keeping this ultimate aim of social work in view, the role of caseworker is simply to create an environment in which the client can see his problems clearly and he is able to solve them in later phases of his life. Fine. Now, just moving ahead, I would like to mention that the principle of self determination is simply a form of participation. Both means the same. We can use it interchangeably. We can say that principle of client self determination or principle of client's participation. Until and unless client participate in any process, he is not able to solve his problem. So, self determination is simply a form of participation by the client in a decision making process. Here, the client is actually the main actor in pursuing plans and taking action, whereas the caseworker is only the enabler. The main purpose of the caseworker is to act as a booster, is to act as an enabler, is to act as a guiding light, where client is able to see his problem clearly and he is able to work out a plan with the help of the social caseworker, and he is able to solve his problem by his own plans and by his own decisions. So we can say that this principle is another important principle of social casework, and it really becomes important that client participates positively in the relationship with the client so that he is able to solve his problems. I think the principle is quite clear. Do write to me, and if something is missing or you would like to add something in it, please share it with me. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.